Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Or thank you for watching the replay, since, I'm not really talking to anybody live right now. But, I want to just start by explaining what this channel is, what this series is, and that I have another channel and a different series. And I'm trying to make them distinguishable. I think sometimes they seem too similar in their concept and structure, but I want them to be more distinct. So, this is my main channel, and this is a series called Fallen World, where I discuss important topics and try to keep the videos more brief and educational. And my other channel is called, Philosophical Psychology. Excuse me again. Link is in the description. And I have a series on that channel, much like this one, called Just Between Us. And on Just Between Us, I take you through a topic in a more relaxed way. This is more focused and educational. That's more chill and just sort of a stream of consciousness. So it's meant to be more intimate and hangout like, whereas this is more focused and let me just tell you what's up. So incidentally, I always have more people tuning in on my other channel, and on this channel I usually am just talking to myself and no one watches live, which is actually better because it helps me focus. And that's the whole point of this channel is, or at least this series, that's the whole point of Fallen World. Focus. So today we are talking about, and by the way, it's every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. For this, and for the other channel, it's every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So it's not always live. Sometimes it's pre-recorded, but there will always be a live chat because I'll always premiere it. If I'm ever late, it's because of tech issues. It's, like a couple weeks ago, I was trying to go live, and it wouldn't let me. So I had to pre-record it and do like an instant premiere, but it was 4 hours late because I had to record the whole thing and then upload it, and it just took forever. So, that is an extremely rare occurrence. But if I don't have a pre-recorded live stream ready to go, and I sit there ready and intending to do it live, and it doesn't let me, I'm kind of out of options. So that's really out of my hands. But generally, it'll always be 8 p.m. I don't like to miss them. And if I have to, I like to schedule something in its place. So, let's discuss today's topic. This is how to stop self-abuse. I think this is something people don't talk about enough. I hear a lot of people talk about, and I've talked about in the past, identifying abuse to figure out if you're being abused, and I feel like this often projects blame onto the other person a little bit more than what is helpful. I think what you really need to apply in every situation is identifying your role in a situation, identifying what you can actually do about it, and not making it so much about the other person. There's a lot of DIY therapy going on, and psychology and psychoanalysis, and people trying to be psychiatrists, people trying to prescribe and diagnose each other in an attempt to call each other abusive. And I see a lot of messy situations where people are accusing each other of being abusive, and it doesn't go anywhere. Because think about it like this: if you're wrong and that person is not abusive, you probably know it, to be fair. You probably are aware that they're not actually abusive. You may actually be the abusive person. But if you don't know it and you're accusing them of abuse and it's just a misunderstanding, or you're just really paranoid, or it could be anything, but the bottom line is that you're wrong. Then you've just accused them of something horrible, and that's just kind of an unfair position to put them in, because then they have to try and explain why it isn't abusive, and everything they do is just going to sound like they're proving your point, and you're going to be like, now you're gaslighting me, and now you're this, so there's no winning in that situation. However, if you're right, think of how dangerous that is. if you're right, they probably are going to try to gaslight you. They're probably going to turn it around on you and make you feel crazy. So whether you're right or you're wrong, it isn't smart to engage and make it about the other person, to try and attack the other person and tell them, that they're being abusive and they're a bad person and all that. If that's really true, if you really believe that, there's not much you can do about it. However, if you want to save the relationship, if you want to, have a healthy, functioning relationship with that person, what you need to do is start by looking inward at yourself. You need to figure out how you deserve to be treated and identify when you are not being treated in the way that you know you deserve to be treated. And that requires a lot of reflection, looking back at your past. You need to go to therapy. Um, you have to be able to say, okay, this is where this fear of mine comes from. I'm afraid of this scenario, or I react this way when somebody does or says this because in my childhood or whatever, this happened, and you have to trace the origins of your triggers and generally what makes you you, and figure out where it all came from. How much of it is actually you, how much of it is just a coping mechanism you developed or a defense mechanism. You break this stuff down and figure it out and get to know yourself better. So, once you get to know yourself better, it'll be a lot easier to identify what is yours and what is someone else's. Now, this doesn't just mean emotions or reactions. This could be responsibilities, this could be personality traits, this could be a million things. Because we are constantly picking up on things from other people without realizing it. We observe their behavior, their interests, their hobbies. We tell ourselves certain things are normal. Think about it. How many times in your life have you found out that you were doing something in an unusual or weird way, and you felt embarrassed? You realized it was supposed to be done like this, but you've been doing it like that. You may initially get defensive and say, no, I'm going to keep doing it my own way. But gradually, you change. You start doing it the normal way because you think, with enough time from the initial moment you realized it, you start to think it's probably better if I do it the normal way just because it does make more sense, and, you know, then people won't think I'm weird who haven't already seen me do it the weird way, and blah, blah, blah. You start justifying it as time passes, but initially you get defensive. Everyone gets defensive initially. Um, if someone is like picking their nose and you point it out to them, they're probably going to get defensive, but with time they'll be like, you know what, that is disgusting. I probably should stop doing that. Um, so that's the kind of thing it is. It doesn't matter what it is. If someone points something out to you that's embarrassing, whether they're right or wrong, you're going to get defensive. And if they are right, you may realize it eventually. And the problem is, even if they're not right, you may still question it in the future. Someone tells you that you should be dressing a certain way. You say, no, screw you. But then enough time passes and you're like, I don't know, maybe it would be cool. Maybe I would look good like this. Maybe I would be comfortable like this. There's so many ways that it can play out. And I do. What the fuck is that? Where did it go? There's a little bug. It's disappeared. It was freaking microscopic. I was gonna smash it with a pen because I don't like bugs in my house. Ah, found it. Ah. It's jumping around. I don't think I got it. I feel like it survived my attempt on its life. I don't see it. I don't see its body dead or alive. I mean, I don't know where it went. It was able to jump. It must be some kind of a flea or something. Although I don't know. Not fleas can't be the only things that jump. But it was tiny and it was fast. Hey, I'm just glad it wasn't a spider. Major arachnophobia here. Allow me to continue. So what was I saying? you have to identify your triggers and everything. So yeah, if you start to realize that something you're doing is a result of something somebody planted in your head, ask yourself if you really want to continue doing it. And sometimes it's okay to just have a thing that you do that comes from a place of trauma. You don't have to fix everything because you don't have to think of yourself as broken, but it is still important to identify these things so that you at least know where it's coming from and to have a little bit more control of it. You know, you don't want to just be accepting negative things about yourself. Like, oh, I just have outbursts and yell at people and treat them like absolute crap because I have trauma. You know, I'm allowed to be a horrible person to other people because I was so traumatized and I just can't help it. Like, you, you should, in some level, be able to say, you know what? I have bad reactions to things, but I know how to apologize for it. I know how to make sure that I'm still being considerate of others, and I know how to prevent it from happening in the first place. Like, once I figure out what my triggers are, I let people know right away and I say, hey, don't touch this thing or I'll get upset, you know? Or not even that I'll get upset, but just like, I would really appreciate it if you didn't touch this thing. And then if they do touch it, react accordingly. If it was blatantly disrespectful, you know, and they were doing it even though they knew you didn't want them to, maybe you shouldn't have that person around anymore. If it was an honest mistake, try to calm down and start thinking rationally about what you can do logically about it without attacking them or blaming them or making them feel bad. Because, like I said, in that case, it would have been an honest mistake. So try to manage these things. You don't need to change them completely. You know, if there's something that you don't want someone to touch, for example, it doesn't mean you need to work on that so that you're okay with people touching it. It just means you need to find a better way to respond if someone does touch it and a better way to prevent it from happening in the first place. So, just in general, try to manage these things better and try to make sure that you're focused on making sure you're not being cruel or rude or unpleasant to other people unnecessarily. Um, Hi, Max Princeton. Um, do I know you? Anyway, so let's continue. Um, mm, let's see. My brain is trying to catch up, trying to remember where I was. Don't think so. Hmm. Well, I remember you commenting some negative shit on my live stream last Sunday, and I blocked you over on my other channel. So, you know, I blocked you because you were being an asshole, and also because I have a suspicion that you are this stalker with a million different accounts who likes to comment weird shit on my videos. But, you know, I'm not 100% sure that you're that person, but either way you were being an asshole, so whatever. Um anyway, um trying to I'm always losing my train of thought. Um let's see. Once you identify everything and you know the cause of it and you have a bit of a handle on it, then you have to figure out um, how you deserve to be treated. And this is the hardest part because a lot of people have been brought up in in an environment, in a condition where they are constantly left and right, left with the impression, often by the people who are supposed to love them the most, that they're unlovable, that they don't deserve love, um, and that any pain or agony or discomfort or stress that they might experience is deserved, and it's all that they're good for. So this belief is so deeply ingrained in a lot of people that they don't even know it's there. And they may actively believe it, where if you ask them, they'll tell you they don't think they're deserving of love. They may subconsciously believe it, where they'll act like everyone deserves love and they'll be kind to everybody else. And, you know, they'll they'll be like, oh, self-positivity, self-love, self-care, and all that. But at the same time, there is a subconscious part of them that is controlling their behavior. And if you pay attention closely to their behavior, you'll notice they're not treating themselves very well. They may date people who treat them the same way that, whoever put the idea that they're unworthy of love in their head treated them. They may date people who treat them the way they deep down believe they deserve to be treated. They may treat themselves this way in any interaction, any relationship with their boss, their friends, their partners. They may overextend themselves. They may be, too available and too willing to help to the point where they sort of become a martyr. And then they can also become abusive themselves, which is really sad because, um, when you function that way, you can become so warped into it that you don't even think you deserve joy or peace or happiness. So you're constantly looking for something to be anxious about, constantly looking for something to feel like things aren't okay. And this can result in you doing some pretty messed up and hurtful things to other people, and also hurting yourself and overextending yourself and making yourself a victim, essentially. And you don't want to be a martyr. You don't want to do that. So you have to try and catch this stuff and get help for it. There's not anything that you can really do besides ask for help and try to work on it, because it is worth doing. There's nothing else to do besides that. I mean, what are you going to do? Just live in a cycle for the rest of your life? Just, go through the motions and the habits and just do things the way that you're used to doing them and never change, never evolve, never learn anything, never grow as a human being? Um, that that would be a shame because sorry, I blocked that Max Princeton person because I'm still pretty confident that it's my stalker Dave. Dave isn't his real name. It's just one of many fake names he has, but it's the first name I knew him by. So it's still how I think of him. But the only thing I really know about him for sure is that he's definitely a guy. He's definitely nuts and creepy. And he has like 15 million fake accounts, and he spends all of his time chronically online watching live streamers like myself with small channels, and commenting weird shit on them from his many different accounts. So that's his whole thing, and he found me somehow, and I cannot get rid of him. But I started calling him out for being insane, and he stopped playing nice with me and started saying nasty shit to me. So I started blocking all of his accounts, every single one that pops up. And that is the first account I've blocked where, you know, I had to wonder, is it really him? Because he didn't say anything specifically to suggest that it was him. It's just that he said something negative on my last live stream, and I don't know who else would do that or why else he would tune into this one if he doesn't like me, like how he found me. Just so weird, you know? It's probably him. It's very likely that it's him. So let's not talk about him anymore. Um, I have every account that I'm aware of blocked from this Dave person. So that's that. And that leads me into what I want to talk about next, which is boundaries. Um, the most important thing about self abuse is lack of boundaries. And I was already talking about that a little bit with like overextending yourself and being a victim all the time. You need to know where your limits are, and you need to know that you deserve limits. You deserve peace. You deserve to enforce these boundaries and let people know where your line is drawn. So, what you want to do is, if you have someone, and goes back to the example that I was talking about at the beginning, where if you have someone who you think is abusive around you, you need to make sure that you're not worrying about whether or not they're an abusive person. You're worrying about whether or not you're allowing yourself to be treated in a way that is unacceptable to you. And the only reason you might do this is if you aren't setting proper boundaries. And the only reason you might do that is if you don't know what you deserve to be treated like. You haven't figured out um, what your limits are and how to hold firm in them. A lot of people think they're setting boundaries, but in reality, I think what you need to realize about boundaries is that it isn't really about controlling the other person or controlling the situation in any way. Boundaries are just about you and your peace of mind and your self respect. So, people will say, I set boundaries with him, but he didn't respect my boundaries. Well, that's not a boundary then. He shouldn't have the option to disrespect your boundaries. If you set a boundary, that's that. You know, disrespect is not an option. If there is an attempt at disrespect, you need to have an equally disrespectful reaction. If you say, don't call me after 9 p.m., and then somebody keeps calling you after 9 p.m., you need to block that person's number and let them know you have lost the privilege to text me or call me at all. You know, I gave you the chance. I told you that 9 p.m. is the cutoff, and you kept calling me anyway. That is unacceptable. So it's not allowed. You have to have a reaction. But what a lot of people do, just with that example, is they'll say, don't call me after 9 p.m. Then that person keeps calling them after 9 p.m. and they keep answering and then talking to them, and then they'll complain about it. Or they'll get woken up and then they'll be like, oh, you woke me up, and then they'll just keep it just keeps happening, you know? And then they complain and they're like, this person keeps disrespecting my boundaries. They keep calling me after 9 p.m. You need to do something about that then. Because if you're still allowing this person in your life, if you're not blocking them, if you're not having an actual reaction to their, blatant disrespect of what you're asking, you haven't set a boundary. You've made a suggestion and they've decided not to follow it. And you're letting them know that that's okay. You're showing them that that will go unpunished, that will go without consequence. And that cannot be the case. If you respect yourself enough to know how you deserve to be treated, you have to be firm in the boundaries you set. When you say no, it means no. It doesn't mean maybe. It doesn't mean not right now. It means no. And if they try to do it anyway, you have every right to do whatever it takes to stop them because they're the ones in the wrong. They're the ones who can't take no for an answer. They're the ones who don't understand or don't care to understand, don't want to do whatever you're asking them to do or not to do. Now, not to do something is always better. You can ask someone to please not do something, but asking someone to do something is a little different, because you don't want to seem like you're entitled to someone else going out of their way, to help you. If someone keeps making a really annoying noise, right? They just keep going, "Ah," or whatever, like the Dumb and Dumber Jim Carrey noise. Um, you can ask them to please stop doing that. But if you want someone to do something, you want someone to, I don't know, just use that reverse example. If you want someone to make a certain noise for some godforsaken reason, that's different because you can't say, it's my boundary. I need you to make this noise every 5 minutes. Otherwise, I'll be annoyed if you don't make the noise. Do you see how that makes no sense? So there are some things that you just cannot reasonably ask of anyone. And it's always okay to ask someone to not do something, unless that's something that is completely normal. Like, there are certain normal things that people just do, like mow their lawn or, make occasional sounds, because we're alive, we exist, we breathe, we make noise, things happen. Um, and it's just not reasonable to expect people to not do things that are perfectly normal or sometimes even necessary to do. Telling someone, don't take a shower, after a certain time, that's weird. That's not a reasonable ask. Um, if, however, you're in a situation where that person taking a shower is going to disturb you in some way, then you need to come to some sort of agreement because you may be inconveniencing them by asking that of them. So you need to be in agreement. This is not a boundary situation. That's more of a let's figure this out together situation because there's a conflict. And you don't want to presume the role of being in charge by saying, don't do this after this hour or don't do this at this time. Because when you presume that role and you start bossing the other people around, it's no longer two people trying to figure something out because one person wants A and the other one wants B and you can't have both. You need to figure something out and compromise, and that is a mutual decision. You're no more entitled to that than the other person. Now, of course, it's different if it's like somebody staying in your house and it's your house, but you have to be realistic about the circumstances. All of these other factors matter, and they should be common sense. They should be taken into consideration. Um, But in general, regardless of all the nuances, you have to set boundaries, and you have to make sure you're being respectful, logical, and consistent. You don't want to be excusing something ridiculous as a boundary. So that's why I'm letting you know, like, there are a lot of nuances to look out for. There are a lot of ways in which this can be more complicated than it sounds. But in general, if you use your common sense and your logic and your empathy, your compassion, that's what this all comes down to. Like a lot of the examples I gave, where it's like, but not in this situation and not quite like this in this situation, that would be common sense if you were using empathy and compassion and consideration for other people, and you didn't have a sense of entitlement or presume that you're more important or more entitled to anything than someone else. But you do deserve to be treated with respect. You do deserve to be treated right. So it's important to balance those things, to make sure that in the same way that you're respecting and considering other people, you're doing the same for yourself. And it is tough to maintain that balance. It's easy to just lean more in one direction than the other. But you have to find that balance and do it whatever it takes. There's nothing else worth doing. Like I said, what are you going to do? Just live in the same cycles forever? You have to change, you have to evolve, and you have to adapt. So make it a priority to learn and change. Don't think of it as this will make life easier for me. Think of it as this is the whole point of life. Nothing else matters besides this. That, like, it has to really, you have to rewire your priorities and the way you think of things. Living and making money is supposed to be a secondary thing, not the primary thing. You're supposed to make money so that you can afford to work and grow and evolve as a human being and help others learn and grow. That's what you're supposed to do. And if you only think of your purpose in life as making money and having a job, that is completely missing something. That's, again, it's supposed to be a secondary thing. Making money is supposed to help you do these other things, not these other things are supposed to help you make money. People have it so backwards. And it really is disheartening to see the way people think. You ask someone who they are, they'll tell you what they do for a living. And that's okay when what they do for a living is something they're actually passionate about. But so many people are just trying to keep a roof over their heads and food on their plate. So that's just really sad. It's like they've been brainwashed into thinking that that's a normal way to live and that their job is supposed to be who they are, even if it really doesn't represent anything they're passionate about, anything they actually feel like they're supposed to be doing. People will stick for the longest time at jobs that aren't serving them, which again is about self love. That is a form of self abuse. If you are constantly subjecting yourself to mistreatment and uncomfortable situations because you don't trust that you deserve better and that you'll be rewarded by the universe for taking care of yourself and showing that you're willing to stand up for yourself and fight for what when you know you deserve better, and show up and do the work. I'm not saying just sit back and say, I deserve to be on a luxurious island and not have to do any work. You're going to have to do work, but it's not just the same routine every day. It's not just the same 9 to 5 job or retail job that you don't even have a consistent schedule for, you know, because what you're doing then is you're just doing what other people tell you to do. Somebody gives you a schedule, all you have to do is show up and do your job and do the bare minimum just to not get fired, really. And people get so comfortable in that routine, they don't even stop to think, is this really serving me in any way? Is this serving anybody in any way? Or am I just sort of being a cog in a machine to some corporation or a system that doesn't really care about me? Or maybe it is a good thing, but it's just not for me. Maybe I'm just not supposed to be here. Or maybe I was, but not anymore. Maybe, I got what I needed out of it, so I don't need to continue being here. These are the things you have to think about, and don't be afraid of the answer, because you have to take care of yourself. You really do. Um, and when you are when you're trying to imagine yourself leaving a job, all these fears come in. What if I leave this and I don't find something better? What if I leave this and you know I end up in an even worse situation, or just a million different things that go in your head. And the truth is, it does take work to leave a job. It does take work and bravery and faith to make a bold move in taking care of yourself. And if you do it with faith and with intelligence, you're being smart about it, and you're still showing that you're willing to participate in doing work. The tools you need to get back up on your feet will be there for you. You just have to continue moving in faith. You can't give up and stay at something you know isn't good for you just because you're afraid that you might not find something better or that you may be stuck with something even worse. That is a very pessimistic and fear-based way of looking at things, and it isn't helpful. There's no point in living in fear all the time of everything from change, in any kind of change. That's what people are afraid of more than anything else is change. Change happens when you quit your job. Change happens when you go through a breakup. Change happens when somebody dies or moves away. It's the same thing. Your body reacts to it the same way. The routine that you got yourself in, where you see your boyfriend or girlfriend, or you see your family members, or your grandma, or your mom, or your dad, or whoever, and they're there and they're in your life, and you go to work and you do this, and that is disrupted. Suddenly, your boyfriend is no longer your boyfriend. Your mom is dead. Your job is no longer available to you. These things change. And your body has to process that because you got so used to, both mentally, emotionally, physically, used to these things being part of your routine. And now they're gone forever. You're probably never going to get that boyfriend back. Although, the idea may remain in your head. You may think, but I could, and that may make it even harder because you can't even process that it's happened. You're trying to change it in your mind. You're coming up with ways that you can get that person back. And that is the worst pain you can go through because you're not even starting the grieving process. You're in this weird limbo phase where you're like, it sucks because it's over, but it doesn't have to be over. We're just in a really painful spot where the person that I love and need and want to be with is just out of reach. And if I could just reach a little closer, I could have them. That's the most awful feeling. It's easier when you know they're actually gone and you can start looking back on the relationship and seeing the good things about it, seeing how it served, each of you, and understanding that it's for the past, not the future. That is when the grieving process starts. And it's easier to do with death because, at least with death, you're not fooling yourself into thinking you're going to do a resurrection. You know that person is gone. You know if you see them again, it'll be after you die. Um, so there's no illusion there, although there is still an element of, some people are so put off by somebody's death that even though they know they can't bring them back, they're they literally cannot process what's happening. They're just, they're just like, oh, I need this person back. So this, another version of that, not thinking like, oh, you're just out of reach but you're not there. um Even if you know you'll never get that person back, that can still hurt because you start grieving when you realize um that I think what is the grief process? Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, is that it? um So let's go through one of those. Denial is when you won't admit that it happened. You can't accept that it happened. Then you're angry that it happened. You wish, oh, I really, this was horrible. It shouldn't have happened, right? That's the victimhood phase. It shouldn't have happened. This was wrong. I've been wronged in some way. Bargaining, that isn't going to work in the case of a death because there's really nothing to bargain for. The person's gone. You can't change that. But you may still feel like something, like you're owed something that is never going to be given to you. And that'll keep you in the anger phase. That'll keep you in this phase where you're just like, you feel like you've been wronged in some way. And there's this beautiful song about the death of a 4-year-old boy, written by Taylor Swift, using words that were in a blog by the boy's mom that Taylor Swift read, and it's called Ronan. I think his name was Ronan Thompson or something. I could be wrong about the last name, but for sure the song is called Ronan, and he died of cancer when he was like 3.5 or 4 years old. And in the song, Taylor is singing from the mother's perspective using words that she said in her blog, and some of the things that stand out the most to me. I think it's a really beautiful depiction of grief because she says, um, "Come on, baby, with me. We're gonna fly away from here, out of this curtained room in this hospital gray. We'll just disappear." It's sort of like accepting, you're in pain, and let me take you away from here. Let go. It's okay. Let go. You're not thinking about the pain and the agony you're going to feel when they're gone. You're just seeing this person suffering and in pain and needing to be released from his body, and you're saying, let's just fly away. Just close your eyes. I'll hold your hand, and we'll go together. And you're still alive, but in that moment you're walking them to the door. You're showing them the door, and it's your baby, but that's why you're doing it. It's out of love. The same way that you put your dog to sleep. We're so much kinder to our animals than we are to each other, to human beings. Um, but then in the bridge, she says, "What if I'm standing in your closet trying to talk to you? What if I kept the hand-me-downs you won't grow into? What if I really thought some miracle would see us through? Or what if the miracle was even getting one moment with you?" And that right there, that's the real takeaway. What if the miracle was even getting one moment with you? And you look back on those 4 years and you say, though, you were my best 4 years. It's not, I don't want to be greedy and act like I need or deserve more. I don't want to feel entitled to more. I got 4 amazing years with this beautiful little person. And I had to say goodbye, but it's okay because that was just the end of that person's story in my life. And, now that person is immortalized in a Taylor Swift album. So it's like that's how it works. That's how it's supposed to work. We're supposed to accept when something is over and appreciate it for what it was instead of wishing it was something else. This sense of you believe that it was supposed to be something other than what it was, and you cannot accept what actually happened. So, what is the next phase? Depression. Depression comes after bargaining. You skip the bargaining phase in death unless you're nuts and you think you can do a resurrection. Um, but you skip the bargaining phase and you go to depression, and in depression you're just feeling really, really sorry for yourself. It's the anger after you've worn yourself out. You're too tired to even be angry, and now you're just sad because you're living in an existence that you believe is wrong, that you believe should not have happened. It feels like you've been thrown into an alternate reality. That little bug is back. I swear to God, it's Houdini. I mean, I got something on my hand. That cannot be the bug. It's not that small that I wouldn't even be able to tell if it was a body. God damn it. Sham it. Whatever. It'll come back, and if it doesn't, then fine. I'll never see it again. It doesn't matter either way. So anyway. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. Depression. You've given up on being angry, ran out of energy for that. So then, you know, the final stage of grief is acceptance. You've accepted the situation, you've embraced it as your reality, and hopefully you've also accepted that it's for the best. You may think that you were owed a different future, that you were owed something else, but the truth is, no matter what happens, no matter where you go, you always have you. It's sort of like that quote, wherever you go, there you are. Um, and that's enough. You need to start thinking of yourself as enough, and knowing that wherever life takes you on your journey, you're going through experiences to help evolve you and grow you as a being. And tough emotions are the ones that grow you the most if you process them the right way. You don't want to get stuck in anger. You don't want to get stuck in depression. You don't want to get stuck in denial or bargaining. You want to um, you want to be honest with yourself, and the only way to do that is by accepting the situation you're in. And it is a tough journey. Grief does not just revolve around death. You grieve relationships, you grieve job loss, you grieve any kind of major substantial change. And you have to go through the phase of accepting that the only thing in life, the only thing in the universe that you can control is yourself and how you respond, how you react to the things around you that you can't control, that you can't change. And your goal in that should, like I said, always be to make sure that you are treating others with empathy, compassion, respect, and kindness, and that you're treating yourself the same way and achieving balance between those two things. So, that is basically what it comes down to. So, how to stop self abuse. Um, if you ever feel like you're being abused, or if you ever feel like something isn't quite right, you catch that you're not happy. If you want to identify self abuse, look for negative self talk, look for fear based decisions. You feel like you can't tell this person something. You feel like you can't do this thing. You feel like you can't go somewhere. You feel like you're afraid to exist in some way, and you're hiding from life essentially. Look out for these things. Pay really close attention. And pay attention also to numbness. If you're just like you're not even there for any of your experiences. You're watching it, but you're like, almost like you're in like a VR headset. You're just behind the eyes watching the experiences, but you're not fully embracing them and experiencing them with the level of vulnerability that everyone needs in order to actually experience life. And when you deny yourself that vulnerability, it can only be out of fear. So pay attention to numbness, pay attention to all of these things. Because when I say fear of doing things, I don't just mean that you're not doing them. You may be doing them, but you're not really fully experiencing them. You're trying to get all the reward, none of the risk. And you're denying yourself, a good amount of the actual experience in that way. So so think of like a relationship, right? That has no problems because you're on top of everything, you know everything about that person. You're right there. You've studied them, you know what they're willing to do and not willing to do. You can predict their moves. You're in charge of that relationship. You think you know it's safe because you fully understand that person and what they're capable of, to the point where every time you're around them, everything you do, you're basically taking the role of worrying about it and trying to keep on top of it, stay in control. But in doing so, you aren't actually getting to experience what it's like to really fall in love with someone and be vulnerable and put your heart on your sleeve, to look someone in the eye and say, I love you. You make me feel good. And to not know how they're going to respond back. You know, there's something so intimate and so powerful about just being able to vulnerably tell someone how they make you feel. And you don't have an ulterior motive, you don't have an agenda, you're not trying to get something out of them, you're not trying to control them. They just make you happy. Something about them just makes you happy, and you're telling them that. And how beautiful is it when they feel the same way about you, when it's an authentic, real connection? And the easiest way to identify that is to be vulnerable yourself. A lot of narcissists in relationships will try to study you and figure out what you want to hear, what you're looking for in a partner. They'll be like, what are you looking for? What do you want? What are you hoping to find? So that they can be that. And they're going to do whatever necessary. They'll look at your social media. They'll study the hell out of you because they're trying to pull one over on you. They're trying to present themselves as what you want in a person. And you're going to be able to identify that if you are allowing yourself to be vulnerable and intimate and honest with yourself. Because you're probably not going to be in love with that person, in the real, authentic, intimate way, um, if they really are like that. The only way that a narcissist can get you is if you're looking for specific things in a person. But if what you're looking for is authenticity, a good heart and soul, someone who is pure of intention, and you can tell because you see a bit of yourself in them. There's this real, undeniable fire between the two of you. And that is the kind of connection that I want you to look for. Don't base it on anything logical. Don't say, this person's my type physically, or this person, I like these specific things about them, or I like whatever. The only thing you need to look for is, how does this person make me feel? And ask yourself, really, what does my nervous system do when they're around? Like, do I always feel like I need to be on edge? Like, does something feel off when they're around? Or am I only nervous because I don't know, just like you get the crush jitters or whatever. That's also normal, and that's also a good sign too, if you like someone so much that they make you nervous because, you're trying so hard to impress them. That's kind of vulnerable. That's innocent. That's cute. You're just like, you act like an idiot around them because you don't even know what to think. You're just like, "Oh my God, help." So look for that. Don't settle for less. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. Allow yourself to act like an idiot. It's okay. But know when you are being mistreated. Know what to look for in an abusive situation. If you have someone who's lying to you, study narcissistic abuse in relationships, romantic relationships in particular, and learn the red flags and have this principle. The first red flag is the last red flag. That'll save your ass. So, that is all about not allowing yourself to be abused, not just by other people, but by yourself. Because even in allowing yourself to be abused by someone else, that is a form of self abuse. You're not doing anything to stop it, because you've been tricked by this person into thinking that it's normal to treat people that way or that person is innocent. You'll find yourself making excuses for and defending that person. Don't do that. If you ever find yourself making excuses for someone, run for the hills. I don't care what the situation is. You should not be making excuses for other people, period. Okay? That is a huge red flag. It's the most important one to look for. Never find yourself making excuses for someone. If your friends and family are telling you, this person doesn't seem to make you feel good, you act really different when you're around them. I don't feel like I'm seeing a happy, genuinely comfortable, vulnerable version of you. I feel like I'm seeing someone who's maybe wearing rose colored glasses, and it worries me because I care about you. Listen to those people. If you have friends and family that love you enough to tell you something like that, listen to them. Please, I'm begging you. Um, so, yeah, just different forms of self abuse that I witness all the time. Um, and, just ways that people numb themselves too. Like I mentioned being numb. It's sometimes you're not just numb by coincidence. Sometimes you're numb because you're abusing substances. Sometimes you're numb because you're taking too much of something you were prescribed, or you're drinking, or you're doing drugs, or whatever it might be. Maybe you've numbed yourself just by like, you know, maybe you have some trauma related to sex, so you sleep around to numb yourself to sex, or maybe you're afraid of, being intimate with people, so you numb yourself to intimacy by being intimate with a bunch of people at once, and it just becomes unimportant. Like these are things that a lot of people do. You could even just be constantly chronically online or playing video games, and a lot of these things are different forms of numbing yourself to life and dampening your experience, so watering it down. So don't do that to yourself. You deserve better. You deserve to be fully there, experiencing life and everything it has to offer. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to not know everything. It's okay to not be in control. You're still you, and that's enough. So, hopefully this was helpful. Let me know, as always, if you have any questions, comments. I appreciate every like, comment, subscription. Every bit of interaction with my channel is always greatly appreciated. I always notice it. YouTube tries to hide my likes sometimes, so if you like the video and it doesn't show up, don't feel bad. It happens. I don't know why. YouTube always tries to sabotage me. Sometimes YouTube even hides comments, but I can still see them if I sort it by newest first. So I'll always heart your comments if I see them, and I'll make sure that that your interaction is appreciated. So thank you very much for watching this, and have a great rest of your day or night. I will see you on Sunday on my other channel, or next week on this channel, or just whenever you decide to tune into me. Or rather, you'll see me, I won't see you. But hopefully I'll read your comments if you catch it live. And if I'm doing a premiere, I try to tune in and leave comments if possible. Even if I'm not able to do it live, I like to be in the live chat of a premiere and replying to comments. So don't ever hesitate to leave a comment if it's just a premiere. Have a good day or night, and thank you very much for watching.